Bellamy of Muse on. He's a patriot. Only news links on the Muse website. Infowars.com, prisonplanet.com. I'm not bragging. I'm saying look at the effect. How many other great people of courage are stepping up and standing out. Matt Bellamy at concerts has talked about Inside Job, worn Terror Storm T-shirts promoting my film. As more and more prominent people, Willie Nelson, the list goes on, stand up with courage, it's over for the system. It's over. And more people can now have courage standing on the shoulders of people like mark-stepnoski. Again, two-time Super Bowl winner, 5-time Pro Bowler, NFL, Cowboys center. We've also got Tony-szamboti, mechanical engineer, part of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, waking up Geraldo Rivera, chain reaction into Judge Knapp. Very exciting. In this brief segment, we're going to hold you guys throughout the hour, and I appreciate your time. I want to play the Building What ad, give out the website. It's buildingwhat.org. Running through to the end of the year, the next 3 days, today, Thursday, and Friday, he's given $10,000, and he hopes to match those that give $10,000. I'm told our listeners gave about 30 the first time we did this. That sounds like a lot. It's not. But those few ads in New York, because the ad's effective, had a big effect. I want to ask you this first, Tony, before we go come back to Mark-Stepnoski. What made you as an engineer start questioning, and what's your whole view of 9/11?
Well, I watched the towers come down live at work. We were in a design review when we heard that there was a first and then a second plane hit. And at break time, of course, went out to the cafeteria. And, most big companies have TVs in the cafeterias where we're watching the towers while they're burning. And, next thing you know, one comes down, South Tower, and then a half hour later, the North Tower. And I was shaking my head, wondering where all the energy came from. I'm not saying I was suspicious. It just didn't seem right. And coming home from work that night, I heard about Building 7. And that just perplexed me. I'm thinking it had to be right up next to the towers, been completely gutted. They said there was diesel fires in it they couldn't put out. But it just didn't seem right. Knowing they described the size of the building. And in case anybody doesn't know, most people should know, but they really need to think about it. And I use football field, Mark, as an analogy here. Imagine being on a football field. That's how big that building was in plan, an area. Each floor was a football field in size. And you would have a large column every 5 yards on the perimeter. Then you'd have the same size columns from the 20-yard line to the 20-yard line, and then 3 abreast, another 24 in the middle. And imagine that thing coming down at free fall acceleration for 105 feet. This thing was 610 foot tall.
Unbelievable. It's
immense. I don't think people really fully appreciate it when they see the film, the immensity of this building. So
in most cities, it'd be the biggest. In Austin, it'd be the biggest. It'd be the second biggest building in Dallas.
Well, they're saying in 33 states it would be the biggest building. Okay, but it's not just the height, Alex. It's the immensity, the size, a football field in width and length, and then 610 foot tall. That's a humongous building. It's absolutely immense. And for that to come down at free fall acceleration, it went over a cliff. And it's not moving, and all of a sudden, boom, it goes into free fall acceleration. That's impossible.
And by the way, NIST had denied for 9 years or 8.5 years at the time that there was free fall. Now they've had to admit there was free fall because under Newtonian physics, as you know as an engineer, it's impossible unless they blew it.
That's right. They played a couple games. First of all, they only measured 2 points. They took an average. And David Chandler, a physicist from California, forced them to admit the free fall, which they admit to as part of it. They have this 5.4 seconds that they say their model comes down in. It comes down to the 29th floor. The first 18 stories you can see, and then it's cut off in the view because of a building in front of it. But they say that first 18 floors came down in 5.4 seconds, but in reality, it was 3.9. So they were 40% over, and they did that because that's all they could get their model to come down in. So their model doesn't replicate the failure. Their model never goes into free fall. So, it was whether it was an attempt at subterfuge or not, it was incorrect, and they did not replicate the failure. And if anybody that's seen And they can see the NIST model on the buildingwhat.org website. Their model doesn't look like what you see in the video at all. There's tremendous deformation of the building at the top. All
right, Tony, stay there. Mark, stay there. We're going to come right back, play the Building What ad, ask folks to donate, get into a lot more. Stay with us. A lot of people early on, when I was talking about 9/11 and how they were planning to blow up the World Trade Centers 2 months before it happened, and then on the day that it happened, when I was talking about the controlled demolition, they said it's so rude. Well, the truth isn't rude. The truth is the truth. Buying into a fable that is then used to destroy our republic and our freedoms and have an iron curtain of tyranny lower down over the planet, that is not something that's obviously good for society. Only the truth will set us free. And the truth is there are many governments, the Russians, our own, that it's been declassified of staged terror attacks. And regardless of who you think was really behind it, we know the official story is a lie, is a fraud. And if we don't expose this fraud, then the system is going to continue to use it to bring in a new dark age of control. Talking to Mark-Stepnoski. Mark, when did you first start? I think I first interviewed you like 4 or 5 years ago, but when did you first start to question the official fable of 9/11, and why did you decide, a guy who'd made tens of millions of dollars, very successful in business, great family, what made you decide to take that plunge and do something that you knew that you could be attacked for?
I was skeptical of events the day it happened. And I don't say that, to try and sound like a know-it-all in retrospect, but I say that because leading up to that point, throughout my life, I had read a lot about the Kennedy assassination and the Iran-Contra affair and the Murrah building blowing up in Oklahoma City. I had read a lot about those historical events throughout my life. And had studied them and kind of became aware of the inconsistencies in all those stories and how what the truth was not something that was highlighted in corporate media. So as I watched the events unfold that day in 2001, I felt much the way Tony did. Although admittedly I am no expert and don't claim to be, but just watching that second tower go down that day, looking at the television, I said to myself, that doesn't look like that's from any kind of fire. Just even myself, a lay person, right, a professional football player at the time, just logic could tell you by watching that on TV that was an explosion. That was a building disintegrating into powder in front of your eyes. That was obviously not from a fire. So my thinking was just to wait and see if the system would correct this issue. As time went on, and you'd like to think that any kind of structures within government that are built to detect and ferret out corruption and bring people to justice, you'd like to see those mechanisms go into effect. And it appeared to be that way when the 9/11 Commission was first put together, although it was obvious with how long it took and how little money was given to it that it was never really a serious attempt to get to the bottom of things. And then once the commission was finished and the former members spoke out, that view was cemented, and everybody realized that it was just a cover-up. So honestly, it's just, having the misgivings that I originally had and knowing what I knew about previous events where the public was not told the truth, it got to the point where it became apparent that, certain mechanisms were not going to kick in, and the system was not going to correct itself. It became obvious that this corruption was going to go unpunished, and that, as you said, this event was going to be used as a pretext for a whole agenda that was put in place, prior to September 11, 2001. So I just reached the point where, like many other concerned citizens who have donated far more time and effort than I have, after researching the event, reading about it online or in books, or going to see people give presentations, speakers who, don't believe in the official story, all this kind of added up to me just wanting to do something about it myself, just as any concerned citizen would do. You know, if you're somewhere, you know, you want your voice to be heard, you want to believe that you live in some semblance of a democracy, it was just a case of putting my money where my mouth is.
Well, if you see something, say something, but it's like this airline pilot sees that the airports are wide open for everybody but the pilots and passengers. He puts out a video. They raid his house. Now there's going to be a congressional investigation. Now the feds are backing off the pilot's courage. We learn they only want us not trusting each other and spying on each other. They don't want us seeing buildings blown up in front of us to use our own common sense. But to use the football analogy, which I use a lot, not just when I have a two-time Super Bowl champ on with me, I can clearly say now that they were winning 9 years ago. About 3 years ago, we began to fight back and started to turn the tide. But I have to say, 9/11 Truth wasn't winning until about the last year or so. And now this buildingwhat.org campaign, I think, has really been a game changer, Mark. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, you know, it's had a definite impact, and that's the reason why the people involved chose to continue, because they could see that the effect that it was having, they were certainly getting bang for their buck, and they were accomplishing what they originally set out to do, which was to have this demolition shown on TV. I believe on the day of September 11th it was shown once and never shown again. So it's just a case of getting it out there and educating the public. You know, people who have not seen this building go down, some who are not even aware of it, can now look back on it with a different perspective, with maybe a little bit less emotion clouding their judgment. Now that they're a little bit removed from that day and can respond and view something more with logic and less with just gut reaction, maybe people would be a little bit more willing to open their eyes.
Well, here's the $64 million question. I want to throw it to you, Mark, and then, of course, to the engineer, Tony, who's here with us. But not just their overall agenda of global militarism and takeover that they've gotten through this staged event that Operation Northwoods previously discussed, where the Pentagon lays out why they want to stage big attacks on the homeland to be blamed on foreign enemies. If we don't expose the favorite tool of tyrants, false flag terror, that Hitler used in 1933 to really become a dictator, firebombing his own Reichstag. If we don't expose this, the system's going to do more in the future. I mean, they're not going to stop unless we break their stranglehold on this issue.
Well, that's true. I mean, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And when you have people who, they have the military hegemony that the U.S. has now throughout the world, when you have ownership of the corporate media and you can control the message and censor any information that might come out, then that's what you will get. You will have democracy being subverted. It is up to people like those in New York, in NYC Can, and all the groups, like I said, firefighters, pilots, architects, and engineers from 9/11 Truth. It is up to those people to be involved in truly what is a citizens movement. I'm proud to be involved because it's a grassroots movement. It's